What's up, guys? It's Wes, the People's Pitmaster, back again for another episode of the Smoke Ring Syndicate. This week, we're joined by a special guest out of Florida, Dr. BBQ. Doc, are you there?
I'm here. Good to see you, Wes. How's everything?
Good to, good to see you too, sir. Good to see you too. So, I've got you live coming from Florida. You still living the Florida lifestyle, huh?
Yeah, I moved down here about 20 years ago from Chicago, and I'm not going back. It's nice down here. You can see why old people end up in Florida and stay because it's pretty good life for old people.
Yeah, well, it's as long as you don't mind the heat. My mother's down there and complains about the heat every year, and then doesn't do anything about it. But
I mean, that's why you do. We're trying to do like the reverse snowbird thing if we can, because it's July, August, September. It's pretty bad down here, but there's pretty everybody people up north don't want to talk about the 8 months that the weather's great down here. I lived in Chicago for a lot of years. You know, there's 3 months of pretty bad weather up there too. So
oh yeah, absolutely. So for my listeners that don't know exactly who you are, introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of walk through a brief background on who you are through your what you did before with the trucking industry and all, just kind of how you transitioned into a barbecue lifestyle.
yeah, well, I'm Ray Lampe, Dr. BBQ. I went to my first barbecue cook-off in 1982 and just been hooked ever since. It's the same story as everybody else. I just started way before everybody else. I learned how to cook in high school in the 70s, and the I wasn't a barbecue cook though. So a friend of mine signed us up for a rib cooking contest, and I was the only guy who knew how to cook. So I borrowed a Weber kettle, literally borrowed a Weber kettle, and we went downtown Chicago and cooked this rib contest. We didn't win anything, but I had found my people. I like to cook, but I also like to drink some beer in the parking lot. And I had a friend build me a big grill, and so I had a lot of all the perfect things came together at the barbecue cook-off. And like I said, it's really everybody. I meet a lot of people now that are even getting into it today, and their story is the same as mine. Mine was just started literally 40 years ago.
For 40 years of barbecue. So you've been featured on several TV shows, the QVC network, for just different products, or just your level of expertise in the barbecue world, or
Well,
what's, I mean,
QVC was a long time ago. I've written a bunch of cookbooks. I wrote 9
okay.
cookbooks with major publishers, and one was the NFL Game Day cookbook, and that one got a lot of attention from all kinds of things. And
Hmm.
QVC was doing like an hour of NFL swag kind of stuff. They sort of put me in between the hoodies and the logoed up, lawn chairs and with the NFL cookbook. So it was a cool experience. It just they didn't really care about it. They sold it at full price and it didn't sell because it's QVC. You can't sell stuff at full price. It was really
Yeah.
just a way to. It's interesting. So we wrote this book, partnered with the NFL, and the NFL logo is right on the cover, and so it was a way for them to have one more true NFL product that wasn't a big hassle for them. So,
Yeah.
but since then, that was the only time I've ever been on QVC. But HSN, which is they're actually all owned by the same folks now, is about 10 minutes from my house. And I do go on there regularly with
Mhm.
their products, though. Bringing your own product to the market there, it's really a very specific thing. The folks that know how to do it know how to do it. You almost need these, I call them brokers, but it's not the word they use. So, if you've got your Ninja and you make a million air fryers, and you want to put them on HSN, you kind of need that middle person that knows how to do it. And so
Yeah.
I've connected with those folks a few times and had some products that I've tried to sell. And it's fun. I like to do it. They like to have me over there, but it's not my career. Like most of the people that do what I do over there, it's their full career. So I almost feel bad taking a little work away from them, but that's a good
Yeah.
one. And all the other stuff, just, in the early days, I was telling the story to somebody yesterday, in the early days of the Food Network discovering barbecue, there just wasn't that many of us that were well heeled. And, we were the OG stars of the barbecue world. So there wasn't that many of us when the Food Network decided to do Chopped. I was one of the first guys they called because
Yeah.
they needed, I was on the short list and I had this silly beard and I was at the top of my game back then doing competitions and stuff. So, there was a short list. Myself and Myron was always on the list, and Leanne and Chris Lilly, of course. And, so there was a handful of us that got called for everything, and it was great. And the good
Yeah.
news is they still air all that stuff. They don't take it away. They may do a new season, but they'll air the old season too, because it's the Food Network and that's what they do. So
Yeah.
I've been very lucky with all of that stuff. And then I befriended Guy Fieri early on before he was on TV. Guy was kind of sniffing around wanting to be a barbecue guy with us. And so he, a couple of us got a lot of help from Guy along the way too. So,
Yeah.
right place, right time. And again, it's a crowded field now. There's a lot of barbecue experts, and
There
I'm
are.
not even saying that they don't deserve it. They are, but back then there just wasn't that many. So
Yeah.
the opportunities were easier to get for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So you went with the moniker Dr. Barbecue, and I know personally, I know the story of the legend of Dr. Barbecue. Just kind of walk my guys through, or my guys and girls through, how you became Dr. Barbecue. Were you MD, or how we
No,
get there?
no, I wasn't even close. I was sitting in a bar in Chicago, and I had started cooking in barbecue contests, and in the early 90s, I started really ramping it up with KCBS, and I bought a new van, Astro van, and really cool. And, to haul my stuff around and go to cook-offs. And again, it's the same story as everybody else. It was a 92, I think, the van, uh, so anyway, I'm sitting in Illinois, never, where I lived, they never allowed vanity license plates before that. So all you could get was 3 letters, and which fine, whatever, no big deal. But they just started allowing them. So I literally I called them or send them a letter or something, and they mailed me a postcard that I had to fill out with my 3 choices and my info for my vehicle and stuff. And I mailed it back in. I mean, it's a different time than now, man. Now you can do this all in about 30 seconds with your credit card online. But I
Yeah.
mailed it in, and they sent me the Dr. Barbecue license plate. And I honestly don't remember what my choices were. Dr. Barbecue was obviously one of them, but I think Mr. Barbecue, Barbecue Guy, Barbecue Man, who knows what the choice. And I'm not sure Dr. Barbecue was my first choice. I don't really remember, because it wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't like thought out, it was like, I wasn't
Yeah.
like building my brand like everybody is now. I was just
Yeah.
having some fun and wanted a cool license plate. And, even when I got it, it wasn't like I was going to be Dr. Barbecue. It just was a funny name, and but it stuck. That's for sure. What I did do was I was smart enough along the way. So I've had that license plate in Illinois for years. And then I lived in Wisconsin for a little while, and I had it there. And then when I moved down here, it was available. So I've had it here for 20 years. So I've had the license plate forever. Along the way, I bought the .com before I knew what to do with it. Frankly, I just knew I better
Yeah.
buy that thing. And I've registered the trademark in a few different classes. And so now it is mine, and nobody can use it. But again, that wasn't the plan by any stretch. I just wanted a cool license plate for my van.
Yeah, it's very interesting when I talk to some of the uh, seasoned barbecue guys like Harry Sue, for example. With his Slap Yo Daddy barbecue, it was just literally, I'm going to do one contest for this stretch goal, because they're all IT guys. And he's like, I'm just going to use it one time, and then I'm never going to do barbecue again. And ended up first place chicken right out of the gate, and it's kind of like, well,
Well,
maybe I
it
got
was a
something.
different time. Now everybody, they do it backwards. I always say, I got on those TV shows and I wrote books because I was famous, I mean, whatever level of famous that is. But I was, and that's why people called me to write a cookbook, and they paid me a bunch of money. And that's why they called me to be on Chopped, and they were very respectful to me. And that's why I did it, because I was a celebrity in that world. Now
Yeah.
people write books for free because they want to become a celebrity, and they try to
Mhm.
get on TV because that's going to make them a celebrity. It's just so backwards. Same thing with the branding of creating a name and buying the .com. I was just going along with my life, and the internet was becoming a thing, and I was like, well, I better buy that, basically, so nobody else gets it,
Yeah.
and I bought
What if?
raylampe.com too. I've never used that for anything, but I don't want somebody else to have it. It's so different than now, though. Now you would craft this whole thing in completely opposite order of what we did back then. I'm sure Harry wasn't thinking much about it when he did that name. Oh, you never know. Harry thinks shit through a lot more than the rest of us. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, and
the other
yeah,
one that is, hang on, let me tell you, the
yeah,
one that really is a story is buttrub.com.
yeah,
Byron just made that product and started calling it butt rub because it was fun. And I don't know if he trademarked it early, or it was probably pre .coms, honestly, when he
mhm,
started the business. But think about that now. Butt rub, butt and rub is two things that are very common now because of barbecue, and they weren't back then. I mean, now if you went
yeah,
to get the trademark for butt rub, they wouldn't let you because it's the common thing that you can't have that. Everybody has a cooks pork butts, and everybody has a rub, and
yeah,
Byron actually has that, and he's defended it aggressively, and
yeah,
that's smart.
yeah. He was actually on my podcast a month or two back, and I was like, I gotta know the story. Where in the world did you come up with this bad Byron? And he's like, well, I mean, they used to call me Byron, and then there was this guy that was bad Greg or something like that, and I performed really well, and everybody was my buddies were joking with me, oh, now you're bad Byron, and he said, yeah, I'm gonna throw it on there just so it's got like a name on it, and then next thing you know, it stuck.
Yeah, and if you know Byron, nobody would think of him as bad Byron. He's the nicest guy you're ever going to meet, and
Oh yeah,
but again, that's just that's how that stuff goes. I'm such a fan of that sort of thing, that it happens organically.
yeah,
I just, and because I guess I did it a different way, I just can't understand trying to reverse engineer that whole thing. Why don't you get out there and do something good and make something good first, and then people will tell you what your nickname is, like you just told
yeah.
me.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and Harry was kind of the same way. Like, he was the very first person to ever do my podcast, and I didn't even have video then. And he's like, yeah, he said we were a bunch of IT nerds, and I was a father, and I was like, this is so good. You want to slap your mama or you want to slap your daddy? And he said, I just went with it, just something stupid, and boom,
Exactly.
I at first place chicken.
Well, if you ever and there's still a lot of these names. The problem is if you name yourself, butt burner or so, some of these guys have gone a little over the top with their names, and then it evolves into a business. You got to be a little, it's not necessarily good. A Dirty Dick. You ever have Dirty Dick on your show? You should look him
I
up.
have not.
He's an interesting character. He was one of the original New England barbecue guys, and Dick started making his hot sauce years ago, and so his name is Dirty Dick. Dirty Dick and the Legless Wonders was his original name. So he starts selling Dirty Dick's hot sauce, like something burner or something. And
Yeah.
he's getting it pretty far along the way. And they tell him that, he might want to consider a different name, or even do it under two labels,
Yeah.
Richard's, because his name's Richard. And so he tries this other label. I think Byron did too. Byron tried some like alternate label that didn't involve butt and rub in the label. And matter of fact, he always jokes that if you Google butt rub, you may not find him. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, Dirty Dick, but it didn't work because Dirty Dick was something, as society has grown up a little bit, we could accept that. And Dick tried an alternate label. I don't think he's still doing it. Byron as well. I think they got away from him. But some of these guys are a little over the top, and you
Yeah.
somehow are going to have to switch it. I was just at the National Barbecue Association conference, and I was sitting on a panel with Brad Orson and the guy from Sucklebusters and
Hmm.
Cosmo, and we're talking about this sort of thing, branding and rubs and sauces and how to get them to market. And we were all over the board on what we were talking about. And I told the crowd, I said, listen, if your logo is a character drawing of you drinking a beer with a pig and smoking a cigar, get rid of that. That's not a logo. That's and I look out in the audience and there's a whole bunch of guys that had logos like that. But you put that on a shirt and it doesn't make any sense, and it also
Yeah.
doesn't really look right. And I mean, you have to advance at some point and be professional about it. So we're barbecue guys, so you can still have some fun with it, but hopefully and it's unfortunate because if you started out with a goofy name and built a bunch of success, you're kind of stuck with it. But you might want to try and
Yeah.
make that transition to something a little more normal if you can.
Yeah. Early on before you're stuck with the butt burners
Yeah,
or
Smokey D's did it. He was the smoking clone because he's a big Iowa State Cyclone fan. So they were the smoking clones, and early on, or not early on, but they realized that they needed a more sensible name, especially for the restaurant. And they switched over to Smokey D's, and it's been really a good idea because smoking
yeah.
clone, nobody would know what they're talking about. They'd be thinking the guy was cloning those pigs or something.
Yeah.
There was a guy,
Using
Rick
clone.
Salmon, that cooked for years in Kansas City, and his name was Salmon. That was his last name, and he got so tired of it. Everybody, the cook-off people didn't know what was going on. They'd think he was serving salmon because his name was Smoking Salmons.
Yeah. Yeah. And some names are more unfortunate than others. And I'm, I'm gonna shoot a shot at Rub Bagby, Swamp Boys, bless his heart. He's a Florida Gator fan, and now
Yes, he
everybody
is.
knows
You
that
know who
because
named
of
him
his
Rub?
name. Who's that?
Me. When I first moved down here, I was cooking
I,
in the Florida Barbecue Association,
I
and Rub was cooking with the Dixie Boys, and he had
yeah,
just started. Like he had met Joby somewhere, and he came to cook at the contest, and we were drunk. I was drunk for sure, and we're hanging around, and somebody introduces me to him and says his name is Rob, but I heard Rub, and I was like, "Your name is Rub? That's the best barbecue name ever!" And he's been Rub ever since.
yeah. I actually I remember that story as soon as it came out of your mouth. I was like, oh, I know exactly who gave him that name, and
And
like
like I said, that's totally an accident. A drunk
yeah,
conversation at a cook-off is exactly how he got his name.
yeah. Well, I mean, like he couldn't have got a much better name to be in the barbecue space than Rub. I mean,
Yep.
like and it just kind of it makes sense. Rub Rob. I don't know that you could do that with anything else.
But again,
Um,
it's hard to make that up. It
mhm,
just happens organically, and that's the fun of it.
yeah. So walk me through kind of where we are now, because I know you opened a restaurant a couple of years back, the same namesake, Dr. Barbecue's restaurant there in St. Pete, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, unfortunately, we closed at the end of the year. We were open about a little over 4 years, and so the project was a little over five, and it was good. And business was still okay. I mean, given all the challenges these days, the problem we made was we moved into the hottest neighborhood in St. Petersburg, and it's a
Yeah,
hot neighborhood, and the it just closed in on us. The we knew they're going to build a condo over there and a hotel over there nearby, and we thought this is all great. What we didn't think about was the fact, for one, it was going to squeeze out the parking, and it became in the process of becoming a very urban neighborhood, which is fine for businesses. One of the problems for us was our clientele was older folks that like to pull up, have a parking spot, get out, and go in the restaurant. They don't want to have to Uber down. They don't want to have to park across the street at the big lot. They don't want to pay $12 to park. They don't want to have to look for a spot on the street, and it really became a problem. But business was still okay. But what did happen was my partner who owned the building got an offer from the folks that are building a hotel right down the block. Their next project, they were looking for space, and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. It was just worth more. The building was worth more money than keeping the business, and I don't blame him
yeah,
a bit. Unfortunately, the way the deal was set up was licensing, and it just left me out in the cold. We just closed and all walked away, and it's just the way it goes. I mean, I wanted the deal that way. That's how I like things. I wouldn't have owned enough of that building to make any sense of it anyway. So it was, it was fine. It's just how things go. And I'm not really a restaurant guy. The only other restaurant I worked for was in New York. I worked for Justin Timberlake's barbecue restaurant, and it was a similar deal. Now, I had a lot of input in the menu, actually in both places, but I wasn't there cooking on the line every day. It's just kind of not what I do. So
Yeah.
I as much as I enjoyed it and hoped it would go on for a long time, it was 10 minutes from my house, and I really love that neighborhood. It's a neighborhood I hang out in anyway. So I really miss it. But I just nothing. It was all good and well, except I just wish it would have lasted a little longer.
Yeah.
But you never know; something else could come up. I mean, we're all free to walk away, and I still own the name, and I certainly have plenty of menu input. I got most of the recipes and the ones that I would want, and we could
Yeah.
start it up again. And you never know; it could happen. I'm not in any big rush. I'm very lucky in my life. I've been lucky to take the next project as it comes, even this one. I walked away from the restaurant, and I've been wanting to do this rub project. And the reason the rub project was on hold, I used to work for Big Green Egg for years, and they had their own rubs and sauces. So I asked them, and they were like, well, it would be a conflict. And I had a pretty good position with them. And then we opened the restaurant, and from day one, we tried to use just salt and pepper on all of our meats, and we really liked that. And so it didn't make sense to be selling these rubs that we basically weren't using in the restaurant. So as soon as that was over, I'm just an entrepreneur. I've been self-employed my whole life, and as soon as that was over, I just moved on to the next thing, and now I'm in the rub business.
So, and that's what we'll end the conversation with this, your latest project, I guess, if you want to call it that. You're now in the rubs business. Have you got sauces as well? Is it just rubs?
No sauces for now. If you ever get into that business, sauces are heavier. They break, they freeze, they spoil better. You generally need to make bigger batches, and rubs are a whole lot less trouble for the actual operator. And I have a good friend in town here in Clearwater that is a co-packer, and he's made some products for me before. And then he's connected with the folks from Whiskey Bent, Chad and his wife's products. And she is setting up a distribution situation, which is really nice because she's got all her products, and she's actually doing some of rubs. I think she's distributing and some other stuff that it makes it easier for stores to buy because shipping is such a problem right now. So if you can buy, you're paying for a pallet, might as well fill it up. So it's actually working out really well. I'm really happy with that whole situation. And rubs are doing really well right now, and sauces are a lot more of a hassle. So I'm not in any rush to get into the sauce business. So the hot chicken rub, I got four rubs, and I tried to not make them all the same as everybody else's, frankly. And the hot chicken rub I made years ago, 5-6 years ago. And I had some batches made. And again, the situation with Big Green Egg, and we did use it at the restaurant, and we would sell it here and there if we had some available for retail, but it wasn't something we pursued strongly. But it's hot. It's a hot chicken rub. And if you want medium, don't buy this because it's hot. But it's really good. It's got the original hot chicken in Nashville. It's not necessarily done with a dry rub, but it's hot, and that's why I wanted it. So look for that one. The other one I've been wanting to do forever is a Italian beef rub. I'm from Chicago. We eat Italian beef sandwiches. That's what the people on the street eat. We talk about hot dogs all the time and deep dish pizza, but hot chicken, not hot chicken, Italian beef is really what Chicago people are eating. And I wanted to make something. I always made it at home here in Florida because I couldn't get it. Now I actually can. But so I had this rub, and I was like, well, okay, but if I made it in a shaker like this, you could use it. I made garlic bread last night. Took some French bread, put butter on it, put some of my Italian beef seasoning on there, threw it in the oven for 15 minutes, and it was great garlic bread. You could put it on a steak and have sort of an Italian style steak. You could mix it with some oil and just dip bread in it. Or you could make Italian beef gravy with a half cup of the rub and a couple
Mhm.
cups of water and a little bit of olive oil, and it's a real flavor. So it's really kind of a versatile thing. I think it's going to take folks a little while to figure it out, but that one I'm really been on my bucket list for a long time. And then I made a Chicago style steak and chop rub, salt, pepper, garlic, but a little bit more to it, a little bit of some herbs and some secret stuff in there. I end up using it really for everything at home. It's become my all-purpose rub. I didn't expect that. I didn't think I would like it. I've been a Lowry's guy my whole life. If I don't feel like a
Yeah.
heavy rub, I'll use Lowry's. And I've really pushed away from it with my new steak and chop rub. And last but not least, I made a peach chipotle rub that really is a sweet and spicy barbecue rub. We had peach chipotle barbecue sauce in one of my old cookbooks was a recipe, and we served it at the restaurant, and it did well. We really liked it, but again, I didn't want to do sauces, so I just made a peach chipotle rub, and it's worked out really well. That at the moment, that's the one that's breaking out from the pack because it's the
It's very
sweet
different.
one. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it also tastes good straight out of the jar. Some of the other ones, like the hot chicken rub, you better cook something with it. You don't want to just take a spoonful of that. But the peach
Yeah.
chipotle is sweet and spicy and smoky and tastes good right out of the jar. But so it's 4 different ones. It's gonna be interesting to see. There will be one that breaks out as the good one and one that breaks out as the bad one, I'm sure, and we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah. That's exciting to see. Um, Kind of the next chapter of Dr. Barbecue. And I've been seeing some of the pictures of some of the rubs, some of the bottles, and I was like, I don't remember him being in the rub business. I know he had the restaurant and the cookbooks and this, that, and the third. And I was like, I don't remember anything about being
Well,
in the
you're
rub
not old enough
business.
because I've been in it 2 different times before. Years ago, I had way back at the beginning of the early 90s, I was private labeling a product I really liked that I found at a butcher shop in Chicago and
Mhm.
outside of Chicago, I should say. And it was really good. And I started selling it and people really liked it. Problem was I didn't own the recipe. So private labeling is a legitimate thing to do. It's a good way to go in the business. Problem is you don't have that recipe and you just never will really. You can try to recreate it. And it got to a point where I couldn't get it anymore and it dried up. But I also was in the sauce business for a while with my original barbecue sauce. And I had a 13 pepper blend for a while that was really some pretty good stuff. I called the co-packer and I said, well, how many different peppers, anything you could call a pepper, do you have in stock? And he said 13. I said, well, that's perfect because that's a cool number anyway. And it was the
Yeah.
Crank It Up 13 pepper blend. And that was, I had a pretty good thing going, but again, I had a partner and she kind of fell off. She moved from Chicago to Santa Fe. And it was just hard to run a rub business from Santa Fe. If you're thinking about getting into rub or sauce business, shipping is your friend and your enemy, man. Don't
Yeah. It's
don't
a
move to
makes or
Santa Fe
breaks.
because it just kills you then trying to ship from there. And find a co-packer that's close to home if you can. So actually, this is my 3rd generation into the rub and sauce business. This one I'm
Okay.
taking a little more serious though.
So the third time's the charm going to be for
Hope
this one.
so.
Then. Do you have more recipes planned?
I do. Yeah, I have a couple of them ready to go because you never know. One of these might completely flop and fail. You never know. The good news is these days it's a whole lot easier and less expensive to have new labels made. Back in the day,
Hmm.
we had to buy, reams of labels that were made with printing plates and if you change the product, it was hard. It's just not that big of a deal anymore. So I've
Yeah.
got 2 more on the plate ready to go. And I'd be great if all 6 of them were out there. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily looking to fail one, but if it does, we'll replace it right away because you want to have a line of products.
Yeah.
For me, I want them to all be original, be something different. I don't want them all to be the same thing. And I don't know, it seems to work. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but I look at some of these guys that have a lot of products and they seem pretty redundant to me.
Hmm.
And what that does in the business, we use the term cannibalization, you know,
Yeah.
okay, great. They're going to buy one. So if you got 4 up there, they're still only buying one. So, you're just stealing the business from yourself.
Yeah. Well, and it gives them an opportunity to try different levels of what it is you do too, though.
Yep. Yeah. It seems to
Fortunately,
be successful. That's for sure. I
yeah,
just, I have the old school mentality of it.
yeah. Well, I mean, or you could go polar opposite and go like Byron and do one
He's actually
one
got
row.
some other products, but you
He
rarely see
does.
them.
Oh
They're
yeah, he
just not
does.
very popular.
He's got the hot pepper sauce and the honey, and I think one or two other products that he's got that are
He's got
there on
a
the
Jubilee
website.
seafood seasoning.
Yeah.
And yeah, the peppers are like the pepper sauce, like for greens with the chilies in there.
Yeah, the pepper sauce, the honey, it's the honey that's kind of like a Florida flower honey that
Yes, with
he
his mom's
does, and then
picture on it.
yeah, and then there's one other product that it's escaping me at the moment.
It's the
But
seafood seasoning, Jubilee. That's the other one he's had for a long
is
time.
it?
Yeah.
And there was something I thought that he had that somebody else was making, and they were retiring, and he bought the rights to.
Oh, it
I don't
could
know if that
be.
was.
I mean, you don't see much. He does have a sauce too. He's got a butt rub barbecue sauce. Again, you don't
Mhm.
see it much.
Yeah.
But boy, you sure see butt rub. You can't go to a grocery store anymore and not see that little bottle somewhere.
Oh yeah, 100%. It is everywhere.
I got a
I
long way
told
to
him.
go.
Well, I told him, and you may need to explore this with the chop house rub, because it's would probably work well. As he used to do the butt rub peanuts. It was roasted
Yeah.
peanuts with the butt rub, and that was hands down my favorite roasted peanut. Like I
I
literally
think
would
those
buy.
they still resurface now and then. I don't know what the deal
Yeah.
is. Like you get them and they last for a while and then they go away. Kind of like the McRib.
Yeah, well, and I went to Academy, and I was like, I want to grab, because I haven't had, because there's so many different rubs on the market. So, I try something different, And I was in Academy, and I was like, I haven't had butt rub in years. And so I went and grabbed this little can of nuts, and I was like, go to my truck and pop them open. And I was like, oh my God. I put it on the console, went back inside and bought 6
Good
jars of it.
idea.
Yeah. Well, it was a very good idea, because the next time I went, they had nothing. They didn't even
Right.
have the SKU on the shelf.
Yeah.
And he said he had issues with the consistency for like the rub sticking to the peanuts. And I
Right.
was like, well, you got to figure it out. One of you barbecue rub guys, you got to figure it out, because that works.
Mm-hmm.
That honey, that your peach chipotle peanut, I bet that would be an awesome one too.
Yeah. Yeah, with the sweet, that would be good.
So, so awesome, man. I appreciate your time this morning. And you were on the Starship. Is it the Starship Enterprise that you're on there?
That's what it said. I went looking for a background that was the Starship Enterprise. That's what they said this was. And I like it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate your time, and
All right, man.
I'll let you get out of here, and I'll catch you again real soon.
All right, great talking to you. We'll do it again soon.
Thanks, buddy. Bye-bye. And that'll put this week's episode of the Smoke Ring Syndicate in the books. Shout out to my guest this week, Dr. BBQ, Ray Lampe. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate a review. Drop us a little like in the comments there, and leave us a review on all streaming platforms, Google, Spotify, Apple, and beyond. Thanks, guys. See ya.